Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. Hi, Anant. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show. Thank you so much for taking your time out to be here with me today.
Thanks, Jagmohan. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here and trying to share the knowledge that I have gathered over a period of time and sharing it with you. Thank you once again.
It's our pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Anant. So, my first question is a very open-ended, very informal question. I'd like to, if you can walk us through your journey up until the point you started, Inversity. Of course, we will talk about Inversity in detail, but what led to you starting Inversity, Anant?
All right. Been waiting for this question for quite some time because it sounds like an interview question, though. So let me start from the personal angle first, because that's the I can say the foundation for where I am right now. So I was born to an Indian Air Force family, right, and my schoolings were across this country. So that's the good part and the bad part both synonymously, because the good part is that I get to meet a lot of different set of people. And, Indian Air Force being one set of an area where every personnel starts getting shifted once every 2 years, and there is no specific time period when you shift your geography, which means that as a kid, I used to move out of a school in the mid of a term, enter a new school in the mid of another term, where you would have probably built your friends in 2 years, and suddenly you are set of friend of a lot of strangers out there. That built me into something and someone who I'm right now. Culturally getting accustomed, seeing new faces and strangers every now and then, talking to new people, interacting with people and trying to understand, and being very observant is what built me. Post my journey of schools, I ended up being a science student and thus ended up taking an engineering as a, stream, though it was not my stream or not my preferred stream. And so the condition with father was simple, that I'll do something that he wants and then I'll do what I really want. And that's what moved me from being an engineer to being an educationist, right? While I was doing my engineering, that's where the entire journey of things started for me on the professional level. I always loved communicating. I always loved teaching maths, and I always loved exposing myself into new environment, which led me to be very observant and share that observation with people, right? And that's where everything probably fell into place, and I started getting into teaching as a hobby. While I was teaching, I realized that teaching is a concept that comes only once you convince someone that they have the ability to learn. Because of the experience, especially the subject that I'm talking about is math. And especially with math, the experience that people go through is sometimes so bad in their life that they really want to keep away from math as a subject. So that's where this entire life of teaching and getting into education sector started. Post that, I worked for a few years before realizing that, hey, I would really like to upskill myself, and that's when I ended up doing my post-graduation from XLRI Jamshedpur. And this was the main turnaround point because of the fact that I was not a great student academically in terms of marks and mark sheets, right? But when I look at performance into getting into the top 3 college of this country, I realized academics really doesn't matter here. And that's where I started getting into this field of educating people that it doesn't matter where you come from and what your journey has been. There can always be a situation and a moment when you can trigger and change the entire course of your path and your achievements. And that's what triggered me, because I really started feeling that if I can do it, probably anyone in this world can also do it, right? And I started my entire journey into educating people related to that. So for a good amount of time, I was into counseling, teaching people about how they can change their entire career path based on identifying their own skills and looking forward to their own careers and making the right choice. It doesn't matter at what age you do it, and how do you start preparing, how do you start showcasing your skills in various platforms, and that's how the journey started. Overall, the last 15-20 years I have been into education sector, but I have had my hands dirtied across almost all verticals, starting from teaching, which is academics, to operations, to sales, to driving entire business into profit business, and to heading management, and yeah, couple of failed entrepreneurial part also in the journey. So things have been as a roller coaster, but a good learning and a you know good set of information that I possess right now, which I love to share with people.
Got it, Anand. It's interesting when you said, teaching is about convincing that people can learn, right? Because, and you also cited an example of how math, especially learning maths, would have left a bitter taste in a lot of people and they may not be confident. But how do you do that exactly? How do you convince people that they can learn?
So see, if you look at our regular educational system today, that is a it's a standard procedure that people follow, right? There are a lot of uh, need behind it, because one, they have a constraint of time, they have to complete a particular syllabus, they have to teach a group of 50-60 students in a class, with people having various method of learning and style of learning. So the educators today have their own challenges, right? But when it comes to after school kind of a process, this is where it becomes easy for people like us to teach someone uh, by understanding what are the various ways in which they typically learn. So, for example, if someone loves to manage money or spend money, teaching them from with respect to money is much easier than teaching them with respect to formula. If someone is a let's say a foodie, teaching him through food, right, is much easier than teaching him again through calculations and formulas. So you don't teach based on what you want to teach, you teach based on how the other person is about to learn. And that's where the entire correlation happens, the synergies happen, and the receiver as well as the recipient as well as the person who's delivering, it becomes easy for both of us to coincide at a particular node at a point and then deliver it in a smooth way. So that's what I meant when I said when you teach, it is about making the other person understand that, hey, you can learn it.
Got it. Great, great. Um, you also said that, when you had to do your engineering, but you were pretty clear that that was not your thing. So were you clear right from your 12th standard days, even before your engineering, that you wanted to be in the field of education in some way or other?
Jaggi, here is where I feel that every 12th standard, has a challenge. Unlike, and this is where it's very important for a parent to understand that, hey, look, it's okay for a 12th standard to have a challenge because you as a 12th standard yourself had a challenge, right? So I'm not sure that out of 100%, I'm definitely sure that around 60-65% of the students still do not know what they really want to do after 12. It's the FOMO factor that comes into picture, both from the student and the parent side, that, hey, look, do this, right? It doesn't matter where you go later. You do this will at least keep you safe. Gone are the days where people used to search for a profession which can feed them. Today, almost every parent has taken care of that, right? So now comes a generation where they want to do a profession which will make them enthusiastic, which will make them, socially available, and and also make money, or create that financial independence that they are looking into. So I'm sure when I was in 12th, I had no clue about, whether I would be even able to teach, because I had this fear of going into stage, right? And I met a mentor, which I always suggest everyone, that in your life, always have a mentor. Doesn't matter who that mentor is, but always have a mentor who can guide you and give you that kind of a, kickstart that you really need. So I had a mentor who once told me only one thing. He said, it doesn't matter whether you have fear, stage fear or not. Just go there and speak. What will happen? Two things. One, either you're going to speak good or you're going to speak bad. If you're going to speak good, it will only improve your confidence. And if you are going to speak bad, it will only improve you next time. So if you see, in both ends, there is an improvement by the end of the tunnel, right? So don't worry about what you speak. And uh, and the funniest thing that he said is, it is not the fear. You shouldn't be fearful because you're speaking. In fact, the fear should be with the audience, because they're going to listen to you. So go there and just deliver, right? Let the fear be with the audience. Why are you feared about it? And that's one thing that triggered me, and that's when I started going into public shows, going into competitions. Not as a speaker alone. I used to, because I also enjoy music. I'm a musician too. I
Wow.
love singing. I love composing songs. I love playing instruments. So I took that opportunity and those skills into getting into audience,
Right.
and that's what probably built me into public speaking. And when that confidence of public speaking came into me, and with math as a good knowledge subject that I really love doing, I combined the two and started delivering, you know, simple classes for people who were unable to understand. That's where the entire journey of being an educationist started off with.
Got it, Anand. You also, spoke about you've spent a lot of time uh, counseling kids, right? Now, which is one of the questions that's been recurring in this podcast is also that, finding what somebody likes to do and finding them early in life, or earlier you find it, the better it is. um, what is your thought on this? Have you found a way that kids today, people said, ideal age for kids to, if they can figure out by the time they're 16, nothing like it. Is that really
Right.
possible? If it is possible, what are the ways that one can achieve that, Anand?
See, I feel it's possible, but again, it's more about discussion between a parent and a child, continuous discussion and observation of a parent. Right now, I'll take an example out here. So, if I look at a 10-year-old niece of nephew of mine versus a 17-year-old niece of mine, right? So the 10-year-old nephew really now knows that he wants to do engineering for the fact that he is interested in aerospace.
Right.
Now, it's not that it's so when we spoke about aerospace to him, he started showcasing a lot of videos, YouTube videos to us, saying that what are these aeroplanes going to do and why are they styled so differently. He started taking interest in reading books on aeroplanes and various other informations related to aerospace, and we kept observing him, and his interest has continued to grow over the past 2 to 3 years,
Right.
right? So we realized that now that interest is continuously growing, right, we started putting him to places where his logical abilities started growing. So we started putting him to small coding classes, small classes on challenges, puzzle classes, kind of a thing, to see how his logical thinking ability is improving, and then that's where his entire portion is improving, right? So now at a 10, 11-year old, he's very clear that he wants to get into aerospace, and for that he's trying to figure out what are the various disciplines through which he can make it through. Now the same shifts to his sister, who's a 17-year-old girl, who's still not clear what she really wants to do, right? She's only clear that she doesn't want to get into engineering. And I feel 80% of the teenagers today are deciding what they want to get into based on what they really do not want to get into,
Right.
which is
Right.
the entire cause of the problem, right? So I take commerce because I do not like physics, chemistry, maths is not a reason why I should take commerce.
Right. Right.
So the part is that this is not just an information for a teenage, it's an information even for a parent, that you cannot make your child go through a dream that you did not go through.
Right.
Where every parent wants, I want my daughter to probably do something because I wanted to do that, right? Or I saw someone else doing it. That's not the position. So what we are doing with our 17-year-old niece is we are trying to, on a daily basis, giving her a task, right? Task of reading information pertaining to various industries.
Right.
So first task, so one day we ask her to read about architectural industry. Second, we talk about reading her about making her read for interior designing. Then there is a jewelry designing. So on one segment, we are making her go through entire design as a career.
Right. Right.
The next segment, we are making her read everything related to fashion as a career.
Right.
Third, everything about engineering as a career, medicine as a career. And what the final objective is that when she reads, she should be able to put down her point saying that, hey, is this something that I want to do day in and day out, continuously, let's say even for the next 1 year? Forget about 10 years plan, because career plans of 10 years today is of no use, right? So even if I'm able to do this 1 year continuously, consistently, will I still have the same energy that I had on day one?
Right.
If my answer is no, then that is aside. If my answer is I do not know, then that is kept parked, right?
Right.
And if my answer is yeah, I think I should be able to do it, then I put that under my consideration set.
Right.
So we are doing this, and then post this, the plan is to now align whatever career she chooses with her skills. Whether the career matches her skills, or does she have to, build a new skill for it? Because if it matches, it's beauty. If it has to be rebuilt, then that's a bigger challenge, building a new skill at this particular age, right? So I think this is something that goes collaboratively with kids and parents together. Neither of them can say that it's the other person's choice.
Right.
Right.
Right. Got it, Anant. One of the most practical solutions that I've heard, I must say, because it's a very gray area, right? There is not one way to get it, and
Right.
this
Right.
whatever you said doesn't seem bad at all. It seems pretty doable. But here's another question to you. Now, we in our education system, right, there is we've kind of set up a timeline for people: 16 years, 10 standard, and then by
Right.
the time they are 20, 21, they are graduated. Now, what happens is this is indirectly putting pressure. It gives a certain time frame within which you got to choose. Now, let's say, for example, you're talking about your niece who's 17 years old, and when the time comes when she clears a 12th standard, she's got hardly a month or two to choose what she needs to do next. And then there is a taboo, huge taboo amongst parents or even kids for that matter, of taking a break. Take a break of 1 year. It doesn't really seem like a big thing to me, but I have
Right.
had a certain teaching experience, and when I talk to parents about this, because I see a real gap in skill with the student, and I say, you know what, this skill needs to be fixed before they can go next. It's worth taking a year's break to fix this skill. They are like, no ways, oh, I can't waste 1 year. How do you look at this? Do you think it's wise not to do it, or do you think people should explore this? How do you see this, Anant?
Usually, when I get into that, I usually suggest parents that do the homework when the child is in 11th. Do not do the homework when the child is in 12th.
Right.
Do the homework when the child is in 11th. By end of 11th, the child should really know what she or he wants to do post 12th.
Right.
In case you do not have a definite answer, now then comes the next stage, that you extend this entire homework or the work that you're doing when the child is in 12th. Post 12th, you give the child a 1 year break, and then the child does. So I throw this in this way, that when you already have, so typically, I ask parents that, let's assume that you're residing in a house and now you buy one more house. Now, when you buy another house, is that an expense or is that an investment? Most of the parents answer that it's an investment. So I ask one question: how is it an investment when you're spending money to buy another house, while you are already residing and you already possess one, own one? While the response is that I'm spending because I can get a return in the later stage. And that's where I catch them. I said, that's what you are going to do with your child. By giving that 1 year time to your child, you're actually making them get the return on in their future for the investments that they're doing right now for that 1 year. And that's very important, because over a period of time, nobody asks you, where did you lose that 1 year? Today's the world knows that if you're taking a break, you're taking a break for something good.
Yeah.
Right? And people are okay with it. So every corporate world is okay with it. So there is no reason why someone has to rush. And, the Indian education system says that by 16 you have to complete your 10, right? But it doesn't say that by 21st you have to complete your graduation, right?
Yes.
It doesn't
exactly.
state that, which means you can, yes, but it doesn't mean that you can take more than 1 year break, because then it's a lost island out there, right? You still, if you cannot figure out in 1 year what you really want to do, you probably will not figure out in next 10 years what you really want to do, right? So that's what I usually convince, and we talk to parents, and most of the time parents agree to the fact that, yeah, it's a good idea, because today brand also matters to us. It is not just the degree that you get, right? There are gone are the days when people used to write outside their house that my name is Anant and I am a BE mechanical. Gone are the days. Today BE is there everywhere, right? So it is not about what you do, but it's about why are you doing it, where are you doing it from, and what is the purpose of, where do you go from there? And for that, brand matters a lot. And the more time you allocate for yourself to get into the best brand, the better the rate of the return on that entire investment becomes. So that's what I suggest. And I'm very much with you, Jaggi, when you said, that taking a break really makes sense. If you cannot figure out when you're in 11th, then it's okay. Figure out when you're in 12th, but give a break, don't rush, right? And that's what we convince or convey to parents most of the time.
Right. Great. I mean, thank you for echoing my views on this. I hope this culture, kind of gets a buy-in from a lot of people, and it has to start somewhere. And I think it can only start from the economically more affluent people, because they are the ones
Right.
who think a little differently.
Right.
Okay, Anant. Now, you also said you were part of a couple of failed entrepreneurial journeys of yours. Can you talk about them? What happened, why exactly it failed? I don't think there's anything more valuable than such stories.
uh, I was in my 20s, late 20s, when I started my first entrepreneurial journey. Uh, Frankly speaking, Jaggi, it's more about being part of it rather than wanting to do it, right? The reason when I started something of my own is belief that, okay, there are a lot of people doing it, so I think it's
Right.
time for me to do it, right? And maybe that's the main reason why it ended up failing, because the purpose was not about that there's a problem that I'm trying to solve. The purpose was more about, okay, people around me are doing it, so I think I should also do one, right? Because I find the same skill set as them. And I think that's the main reason why a successful and a failure entrepreneurship happens predominantly.
Right.
I'm definitely sure there are many other reasons why people become successful and fail, but then I feel this was the main reason for me. So I started a company which was into test prep, preparing training students for various level of international exams like an SAT or a GMAT or a GRE
Right.
or
Right.
Indian entrance examinations like CAT and so on and so forth, right? And the second reason why I felt is when we bring on to the table the experience that you have, the belief is that this experience will build something big, right? But what I learned from that is what you bring onto the table does not really matter. What matters is what additional skills are you going to learn while you are on the table.
Right.
And this happened to me when this was in the year 2005, 2006. And the main cause of fall was not adapting to technology, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and we have probably seen starting from the dot-com burst to all the way till 2023, we have seen so many people failing just because they are not getting adjusted with technology.
Right.
And yeah, so that was a reason for the failure. But the good part is there was so much of learning out of it, which probably that 2 years of experience that I have from it gave me probably learnings of more than a decade,
Yeah.
right? Which I probably couldn't gather before that. And yeah, so this time doing something that is taking care of all those issues that had earlier.
Can you please go ahead and share those learnings? What you said to yourself, or what? Okay, this is something that I'm not going to do in the future. But of course, one takeaway from what you said is when you're looking to start off something, the why behind that is the most important thing. Why are you doing that is the most important thing. Then itself, you can avert a potential loss or a risk.
Right, right. The second probably question was that so from that failure is where I bought a phrase for which I really love. I read a phrase at that time and I really love using it. It said that what made you come till here will not make you go there, right? And
Right.
and and that's what something triggered me, saying that hey, I may be coming onto the table saying that I have vast experience in education sector, right? But that may not be sufficient enough for me to go.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that experience would have been good if I was running past, but not for the future. Because every time it's a new experience because you're encountering a new challenge and a competition out there.
Right.
So one learning was that. Second learning is my biggest learning, which I have started using it, is trust your team. Right? When you're employing someone, you should know that they are capable of doing the job that you are giving them, and that
Right.
thus you are employing them. So you doing a micromanagement that you following up with people to see whether they are doing that job on a daily basis is literally telling that you are actually doing that job and you're not doing what you're supposed to.
Right.
So trust your people was the second thing that I meant. The third thing that I really felt, especially in the education segment, is you are not selling anything. In education, you do not sell. Okay? You are actually telling someone that, hey, this is your problem and I have this solution and I think you should consider us, right? To
Right.
solve your problem.
Right.
I'm not going to sell saying that if you do not buy me, you're going to lose this. No, I'm going to say that this is your problem. This is one of the solutions that I can provide, and thus you should consider me. So it is not about sales. It's more about counseling, convincing, and making them understand that uh, they are as important to us as we are important to them, right? So it's a mutual understanding program in education, right? So that's something that we learned. The fourth thing that I would really want to put my point on is managing your finances, right? Uh, when we start a company, or the fault that I did is when I started a company, I did not have a proper financial planning done for a a time period beyond what I assumed to be the right time period. So if I assume that, okay, my business is going to work around in the next 10 months, I should have had a plan for the next 24 months. What if the 10 months do not work? But then I didn't. I fell short and I only planned for the next 12 months, which means I had a gap of only 2 months, which is a very low recovery gap for. In fact, it's a very low recovery gap for anyone, right? And that's something that I learned from that. And finally, the learning was if you have a product for the customer, first go and understand whether the customer really needs that product before you try to sell the product, right? First, figure out whether the customer needs the product. Second, figure out if the customer needs, then what kind of a product do they need, and are you aligned with that? And third is plan about, how much is the customer ready to pay for such requirements, right? What is an alternative option, and what is the cost of that alternative option, and how are you going to differentiate yourself? Only then come out with a product. So yeah, excuse me.
Got it, Anand. Thank you for these things. And yeah, I can totally relate to each and every learning that you put out there, especially planning, financial planning. You expect your business to kick off in a certain amount of days, and then you kind of keep your money for so many days. But then sometimes it may take more time, and it never happens the way we think. Very rarely does people achieve something faster than what they kind of plan and project. Which brings me to now, you're doing something called as, you run a business called as the Inversity. I wouldn't want to call it you run a business. You are actually solving a very, very important problem today, I would say, teaching kids personal finance, because that's kind of where I saw that, you teach for people between the age of 13 to 21, if I'm not wrong, which is a very critical age, because personally, I committed a lot of financial blunders in my 20s. In fact, that is when costly mistakes, costly learnings, very costly learnings that I did. So how did you arrive at this this idea of your Inversity? What made you think that, okay, this is what is one of the needs that people have, and let's solve this? Like, how did it come up to this?
Right, Jaggi. So they say, right? So once an entrepreneur always wants to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. So that's what happened when I ended up having my failed entrepreneurial. I came back to corporate. I started being into education segment again.
Right.
And COVID is the time, thanks to COVID, though it has not done great things to human, but then for me personally, it ended up doing something good. It made me one fine day sit and figure out the problem that I'm literally really solving, because that was the time when I was actually working for an edtech segment. I would not name the company nor the product, but we were actually, as I said, right, we were actually selling the product. And when it comes to selling educational product, it is usually sold on fear basis. And that's something that really triggers me off, because I don't feel like selling anything just based on fear. So that's when I just sat one day and figured out, okay, what can be a problem that I would really love to solve, and which I have, and something into the education segment, right? And I didn't want anything to be related with curriculum driven basis, because then it becomes again the fear way of teaching something. And I started, coming up with various ideas out there. And one of the ideas that struck me, which was actually a practical example, was the way my kids, my niece, my nephews, all young people were spending money. The way they were asking their parents to order anything and everything from Amazon, Flipkart, Swiggy, Zomato, whatever is available. Right? And it's not just about ordering, but how that material once ordered doesn't get utilized 100%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what triggered me. Right? That's where I figured out that, hey, if this is what it is, because then I remembered that probably this is something that even we used to do, and that's why it carried when we were in 20s, when we started earning. That's why we say we should have learned it earlier.
Yes.
Right? Because the only thing that parents today teach their kids is the art of spending. There is nothing else that we teach our kids. I mean, the kids are also not learning anything else. We are not a country where kids are allowed to work when they turn 14, right? We are a country where kids are called adult only once they cross 18. Now, which means their basic quality or the basic understanding of what money is and how money really works and why they are important for us, they learn only when they cross that 18 bracket, and probably they learn after a lot of mistakes that they end up doing. And as you rightly said, these are costly mistakes. Do you mind if I drink a glass of water?
Please, no, not at all. Take your time.
All right. So, so looking at various kind of a problem, the one of the problems that I felt is a very big challenge is teaching kids how to value the money, especially that they get from their parents or from their grandparents, right, or their relations. How to manage that money and how to own it. You know, owning is also one important aspect out here. There's a difference between owning a money and commanding. Today, when you look at a kid who has probably got a gift of, let's say, 1,000 rupees from his grandparent, he commands to his parents that I have received 1,000 rupees spent from there. He doesn't own that money, right? Because if he had owned that money, he wouldn't be commanding it. So I realize there is a huge difference in this particular learning. And it is not the kid's problem. It's typically the parents' problem because they have only given importance into career, into
Right,
studies, into subjects. We have never given importance to kids on, on the financial or the money management skill.
right,
So this is an area that I really wanted to connect and probably solve. While I was looking into which segment fits best, I realized that, uh, you know, 13 onward segment does fit best. But the best fitment is elders. Because unless or until you educate parents, kids will never get educated
right,
on this. Because parents will still feel that my child will manage finance when they start earning.
right,
It's very important that you teach the parent equally as much as you teach the child.
right,
So thus, we opened this entire program from 13 to 21 as of now. But we would like to proceed to open from 13 to 50 because that 50 is going to trigger the 13-year-old
yes,
in the household, right? So, yeah, this is where Jaggi, the entire idea came in of teaching people about managing money, right? And we didn't want to be a program where we talk about investment, okay? Start trading, put your money here. No, we didn't want that because that's something that most of the influencers are doing,
yeah, yeah.
and probably
That's
most
even
of,
dangerous.
yeah, that's more dangerous than
Yeah,
telling you that hey, put your money here. uh, so when we started doing this entire project, we started talking to parents, and there were a lot of interesting parents who came to us and said, hey, I don't think my child needs this program because he's already trading.
wow,
So I was very curious. So the first thing I asked those parents were that how did he get the money to trade? And so the parents said, I gave the money to trade and he returned to me the money. I said, that's the beauty. You gave the money to trade and he took the money because he knew there is no risk. And you gave the money thinking that I don't mind if he takes the risk. So when there was no risk for you to lose the money, nor for him to lose the money, right? There is no learning out there.
right,
The learning comes when your entire investment is dominated by your psychology
right,
more than money. And that's where we found this entire loophole. And thus the Inversity was born. And I'm very proud to say, Jaggi, that we are probably one of the only institutes or only company in this world who starts their entire program teaching from psychology. We don't teach anything else, but the first thing is the behavioral aspect of money or the psychology towards money, which we feel is very important before you even know anything else about money or investments, right?
Got it.
So yeah, this is how it started.
Got it. You said about 4 to 5 learnings that you took away from your previous experiences about, entrepreneurship, and then, then you started this somewhere during 2020. So how did you go about executing those learnings while you started the Inversity? Say, for example, you said understanding the need. Does the market need what you're selling? Is there a problem? So how did you go about figuring this out?
Okay. So 2020, though I started I can say the commencement or incorporation of the company happened, the program actually commenced in 2022 only. I took
22.
almost,
Wow.
yeah, I took almost 1.5 years to just be in the market, talk to people, to figure out whether they would really want some program of this nature. And if they want, what do they want to learn from out of it, right? What is their objective of learning? I started talking to teenagers, to parents, to students, 18 plus age group students, youth, young professions. And that's where this entire program came up with, inputs from people. We have spoken to almost, I can say, 1,200 people, And I'm not
Wow.
saying we did a survey, we individually went and spoke. And based on their input, based on then understanding about what is being offered in the market right now, right, what can be the best match, that's how this entire program got created. And so that's the first thing that we did. So ensuring that I do not come out with a program and just put it in the market just because I feel it's a problem solving program, right? I ensure that there are people who are there who think that this is right. But then saying that, I still am on a thin thread because 1,000 is a very small market to talk to. When you're talking about billions and billions of people out there, 1,000 is a very small market to talk.
Right.
But at least it gave us an idea of what people really look into. There were a lot of people who also came out saying that, hey, I don't think I'll be even buying this program because such programs are available. You go to YouTube, you go to Udemy, you go to Coursera, you have such programs available. So people who criticized us also gave us insights of what we are missing in our program, right? And how do we differentiate ourselves from the rest of them? And that's also what's the beauty of it. So that's one. So we ended up taking that. Second is we started spending a lot more time in recruitment. We started spending we were on an average spending 1.5 months to recruit one person, right? Because the idea was that once someone joins us, he never leaves us, right? That was the idea. So we are not a company which is like, okay, I will give you a lucrative salary and I will give you an ESOP just because I want you to stay, right? We believe that ESOP is not something that makes a person stay. It is still it is the environment that makes a person stay.
Right.
And right, and the team. And thus we have not offered even a single ESOP to our employees, but we have offered an environment which we felt we missed when we were employees, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that was the beauty. That's actually, I can say, the beauty of working in companies, because as employees what we suffer, we really realized that this is the loophole that exists, and this is the loophole that we want to clear in our existing company. So we took that. So we ended up taking people from a very in-depth, detailed analysis and understanding.
Right.
Uh, Third was planning our finances. We were okay to let go someone who was good but expensive, right? Just because we didn't want to burn,
Right.
right? Uh, we are not investors backed up.
Right.
That's like 2020 to all the way till 2023. We have been backed only by friends and families. We have not taken an external funding as of now. And we
Right.
don't see that we need one, right? Because we are not a company which is getting into a valuation game. We are
Right.
really providing that value that we really want to provide.
Right.
And thus, yeah, so that's the finance is the part that we are handling very cautiously, and that's why we are able to survive for almost 2.5 years right now. And yeah, and completely technology driven. We realize that things are changing. In fact, we are also developing our AI tool, which will help people analyze their spending behavior,
Right.
and
Right.
and and that's something that we felt is required, right? So yeah, so somewhere all the learnings that we have done is getting incorporated, but ensuring that we are open for suggestions and we are open for changes. We are not very stringent or straightforward there. So it's a long journey to go, Jaggi, for us.
Great. Um, the way you kind of described, it has a very, very relaxed uh, vibe to it, if I can use that word. So, yeah, I can totally see, that the failures getting translated to, better usage or, learnings rather. But I want to dig a little deeper. You said you spoke to 1,200 people. It's easier said than done. People will listen, oh, okay, fine, I'll go talk to 1,000 people. But when they start, where do you find the first person? What was the methodology you adopted? Did you uh, write cold emails, or did you go outside of institutions to talk to teenagers? How did you carry out this entire process, and how long did it take?
So it took typically for us almost, I can say, 8 months for us to cover. The place that I started from, I did not go anywhere to any person from India. I
Oh,
actually connected to a teenager in Australia
okay.
who's 14 plus and working,
Hmm. Okay.
right? That I wanted to know their behavior towards how do they manage their money,
Okay.
because they are now part-time earning, so they value money more than anyone else would do,
Okay.
more than a full-time or two, right? So I connected to them first,
Right.
and from there I connected to their parents to understand the behavioral change in the child,
Right.
right? That's where, post understanding that segment, is when I came to within the local portion. I segregated my entire or we can say we segregated our entire audience into various demographics and geography,
Okay.
uh, paying capacity, financial capacity. We started going into niche or very high status spaces, maybe restaurants or apartments or residential area. Started talking to parents and kids there, more of parents, because we knew that the kids behavior is going to be different there, right?
Right.
High net
Right.
HNI people typically. We also spoke to these labor class
Right.
to see how do they manage, and you know what are their kids responses to that. And so we ended up going to various colleges, talking to students, talking to professors, going to university, talking to
Mm.
chancellors. So we distributed our entire audience into various segments
Right.
so that we get a different idea altogether, rather
Right.
than just one idea and then putting that formula across all the program, all the people. We started bringing ideas from different people. So that's what curated the entire journey. I
Got it.
mean, initially when we actually, if I can take a couple of minutes of yours to make you understand what the journey is all about, right? So
Yeah.
initially when we started the university, our idea was only to teach about finance or money
Right.
management.
Right.
But when we spoke to people, we realized, hey, teaching is just a very, very small aspect,
Right.
right? When I look at any individual as an academician or as an individual myself, I see we have three stages of journey.
Mm-hmm.
At the first stage, we learn. At the second stage, we apply our learning.
Right.
And at the third stage, we execute that learning that we have applied to get monetarily benefit or
Correct.
any substantial benefit.
Right.
Okay. So there are three stages always. There is a learn, there is an apply, there is an execute. Now, when we were talking to parents or students or anyone, we were talking about the learning aspect.
Right.
But we realized that we are completely missing on the apply and the execute aspect.
Right.
A student may come to me, he will learn, but where is he going to apply his learning?
Yeah.
The problem is he will be reluctant to apply because he still sees that risk. Right? It is more to do about how you talk about money within family. That takes care from me being a nerd or me being a spendthrift. Right? How the family talks is more important than how I think.
Mm.
So that's where this entire journey came into picture, and thus the name came as the Inversity, the University for Investment. Right? So we have three phases altogether. The first phase is about you learning about money management. The second phase that we are coming out with is an AI-driven gamification, where you do not put real money, but in real time you get to know what your money would have done if you had taken that decision.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So bringing in AI-driven analysis, where it will track your expenses on a daily and a monthly basis. And if there is a change in your monthly expense, it will showcase that change and at what percent that change has happened. So if your luxury change towards luxury has increased by, let's say, 10%, it's going to warn you that, right?
Right.
And it's going to push you to make your changes required so that you still stick within the boundaries of your habit.
Right.
And then we want to bring out our fintech platform where you start executing. Once you have started gamification, you have started building that confidence that, hey, look, my investments can also grow. Now you really want to put your money. So we want to bring in that fintech where you will start putting your money
Right.
and start looking at the money grow. So if you can imagine this, it's like you can join at any of these stage and you can move from any stage to any stage depending on how your performance has been. Right? That's what our entire learning has been in this. And that's why I said the technology plays a very the most important role here.
Got it.
And to add to this, what we call as the Ramban, right? So we have one of the craziest concept which will be floating once we come out with the fintech,
Right.
where every individual, irrespective of their age, irrespective of their education, they from that platform will be able to learn as well as earn throughout the globe.
Right.
Because obviously you don't invest without money, right? So
Right.
so yeah, so that's the entire program that's planned it. So our talk was not just on teaching people, it was all about how do they fit in all these four portions of our space that we really wanted to create. Yeah, so this is how we got our crowd.
Got it, Anand. So you said that, after talking to 1,200 people, what you understood was when you thought of starting off just as a finance education company, but the conversation with these people changed it, flipped it to the point where, teaching was just tip of the iceberg, but applying and executing them to monetarily being benefited from whatever you're teaching was the biggest change that happened after you spoke to so many people. And you had
Right.
to pivot your whole business model accordingly, I believe.
Yes.
Got it. Anant, after this, when I saw your website, it said 13 to 21 years. You also said, you're targeting elderly people like, who are 50, but that's something I'm not sure if I missed it, or is that a plan for the future?
It's a phase two, so that's why we have not updated in the website. It's a phase two. We
Phase
really
two.
want to first, capture this audience.
Got it, Anant. Now, going back to the time you probably, concretized what you're offering and then you went to the market, right? How did the first sale come about? Was it family and friends, or was it a total stranger? Can you talk more about the first few sales and the first batches and stuff?
So what we did is post speaking to these 1,000 people, right? So we ended up taking their references. So when we spoke, we took their references, we took their numbers and mail ID. And we invited anyone that they think needs a learning on financial literacy, right? And who falls between the age group of 13 to 17. We invited them for a free session.
Right.
So what you can say is we actually ended up doing an affiliating marketing part, right? So where
Mm.
we had built a trust because, see, I believe that if I have to ask you for your opinion on a particular topic,
Right.
you'll be more than glad to give your opinion, right? Because I do not know, but I may be wrong to say this, but Indians love to give opinions because they're free, right? We love to give opinions. And if I go to someone and I'll say that, hey, would you like to give an opinion? They'll be more than happy to give it as long as it doesn't cost them anything.
Right.
And that's how we actually ended up getting the 1,000. Right? So as you think, the 1,000 was not that actually difficult, right, to get. Now, what we ended up doing is because we had already spoken to 1,000 people, because 1,000 people already knew us, we wanted to use that chain. And we floated people saying that, hey, look, we are looking at to someone between a 13 to 17 age group who can attend maybe a, 4 sessions or 5 sessions just for free to understand how you manage money. And this is where, from those 1,000 people, we got approximately 183 people coming and attending the session, right?
Right. Right.
And I didn't have to do anything to get those 183 people coming and attending the session.
Right.
And the beauty of that is because I had spoken to certain colleges and universities and schools, we also ended up getting certain school and college tie-up because of that, right?
Right.
And that's where, so out of that 183 students who came and attended our session, we had the first sale coming out of it, right? So, and so I'm not saying that your sales is great. We just started the sales by the month by January 2023 is when we actually started selling this program,
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay. Oh,
So
till 20 for the entire 2022, you never made any money from what you did.
no, no, no. We wanted to make sure that what we start, we are starting in the right way.
Right.
Rather than I make money and then I lose 10 times of it and then I start changing my product, it's better to lose
Little bit.
only a bit of it and be safe,
At least
right?
have some clarity. Got it.
Yeah. So that's when the January is where I my first sale, and so from then we have got significant working out, though it's not growing enormously. But then yes, people are recognizing, people are calling us, people are looking forward to talk to us. So we just signed up a college in Mysore whose program is starting next week. We are signing up a college in Bangalore whose program starts in July. Then we are starting a program for a Patna or Bihar-based college and an MP-based college. So this, frankly speaking, this 1,000 really changed our entire way to approach the market, right? And yeah, so we are now trying to do one more round of this for probably 5,000 people to get their opinion. See, the idea is that I reach 5,000, but I also get their opinion, they remember me, and they market me, right? So my cost per acquisition should drastically drop there, where my awareness starts increasing high. So you can say an old school of thought, but before digital marketing came, it was the ground activity that we used to do. And I think nothing better than that, which comes as a word of mouth, right? So yeah, this is where currently it is, Jack.
Got it, Anand. No, I mean it could be an old school of thought, but I'll tell you what, it's amazing. It's rock solid to say the least. Because um I mean, as I was listening to what you were saying, right, talking to 1,000 people, and then when you ended the whole conversation, it makes complete sense. Because it's only win, win, win for you, right? You are, of course, maybe the difficult part is the time that it takes for you to go complete conversation with 1,000 people, but the outcome after you do that is pretty amazing. It's organic. You don't come across salesy, you know, you come across educative, there's only positive things that I can see. And if people are listening, who are um, looking to start, a education based business, I think here's a method right here in front of you that you can follow. Go. And this also ties back to the fact that you wanted to do the research and market, right? Whether this product is viable or not.
Right. Right.
And
So
you solved
the idea was
problems.
never about marketing, right? So the
Right,
idea was never about
right.
marketing. If someone comes and says, "Hey, you know what this person has spoken is such a waste. He has spent 8 months reaching out to 1,000 people. I would have spent 50,000 rupees on Google, Google Ads, and I would have reached 1,000 people within 8 days. I mean, this guy is completely wasted his time. I mean, if they're looking at this idea as an approach to marketing, then they have got it completely wrong. It
Right,
was
right.
never an approach to marketing.
It's
We
not.
just leveraged it in the later stage.
Right, 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 right. Uh, no better way to, get, you see, getting 183 students as audience, even if they do not pay, is still a huge thing. People,
True,
you
very
go
true.
and call people and ask them to spend a couple of hours with you for free. No, nobody's going to do that. It's not that easy. So
But the
there is a
fact, Jackie, but the fact that we have to also look into the fact. I mean, I know that I'm boosting my own company, but then that's not the purpose. But the idea was that when we reached 1,000 people, right?
right.
13 to 17 was only our audience of maybe 10 to 15 people.
Ah, right.
So if me getting 183 students who are in the age group of 13 to 17 means that the remaining 900 people actually pushed my message to one of the relevant audience.
Right, right, right.
Right. So that was the entire uh, visualization that we found to be actually positive.
Right.
Had I spoken to 1,000 people whose kids are in 13 to 17 and only 183 came, that's like 10%, 10 to 12%. That also is actually good because you're
It's
considering
not bad at all. Yeah.
cold lead to a footfall. But then considering that I did not have that audience and those audience actually pushed someone to attend for free was something that really gave us that boost of yes, now it's a time that we can actually hit the market with the right product.
Got it.
Yeah.
Ananth, by teaching the 183 people, or offering them a free session, or how many ever sessions, or if you even complete a program, what did you exactly achieve?
So one was, see, we wanted to test a couple of things. One is the mode of delivery, right? Now, we knew that if I give complete live session to students, it may not be beneficial, right? Because certain learnings some students do not want, while some students would want.
Right.
So our entire program is number one, a hybrid program where we offer self-paced classes as well as live classes, right? This differentiates us from the existing platforms because in existing platforms, it's more of a self-paced classes that are hardly live. Live classes has this one-on-one live class, which is not operationally beneficial. And it at one point of time, you will start engaging low quality deliverable faculties, teachers, right? Just to ensure that your cost of operation is low, and which is not going to make sense for the learner.
Right.
Business side, obviously it will, but for the learner, it will not.
Right.
So we wanted to see whether this combination of live and self-paced class works. That's number one. Number two, we wanted to test is our content, right? Whether the student who's 13 to 17 will be eagerly engaging with the content that we have. Because though the content varies, each age group has a different style of learning and a different capacity of learning. We have to ensure that we do not get into that elastic mode of testing your elasticity limit out there. So that's the second part. And finally, we wanted to ensure that because we are teaching finance, and finance is not a cup of tea for everyone.
Right.
We made our entire sessions only 20 minutes.
I noticed that. One was 15 minutes, one was 30 minutes. Yeah.
Right. So we have self-paced sessions, which is 10 to 15 minutes video, while our live classes is only 20 to 25 minutes.
Right.
So we do not want any student to feel by the end of 20, 25 minutes that, oh, I wish this gets over.
Right.
Right?
Right. Right.
We always wanted someone to say that after 20 minutes, oh, I wish it continued. So we wanted that. So we were testing all possible areas, whether this really fits, how does this fit, and how should be your teaching methodology be? Should your teaching methodology be a whiteboard? Should it be a PPT driven? Should it be a video driven? Right? Many people suggested me that you should go for animation.
Right.
But I don't know why, Jaggi, but maybe you can say I'm an old school person out there. But I feel that if we learned things so well without an animated video, the kids who are now born are supposedly smarter than us.
Right.
By making animated videos, you're trying to tell them that, hey, look, you're dumb, so you need this to learn it better. In fact, they're much, much smarter, and thus they require less input to learn faster. So when someone told me that, give an animated video just because everyone is providing one, or a cartoon side of a storytelling, I didn't feel like. I said, you do not need an extra story when they have their own experience right back of their head. So these were the areas that we really wanted to test when we had this 183 students sitting in. While the second thing that we wanted to test is how many students, what capacity should be your batch?
Right.
Should you have 5 students, 10 students, 15 students, 20 students? Because finance cannot be learned as an one-on-one.
Right.
It's a better of a community learning, but you should know clear-cut definition between a community and a crowd. And we wanted to test that.
Right.
So we used all these, gray areas to test with the real audience.
Great. You spoke about, your view on animated videos and stuff, right? You said, it's a very interesting perspective that you brought about, because I always thought animated videos maybe help in better engagement, to maybe not, to make it more interesting, to not make it a boring session. But you had a very different perspective, saying that, you're probably dumbing it, you're probably assuming that they need this, for them to understand. But if animation is not for making things interesting, what did you do to make things interesting, to make sure the engagement is there? Because engagement, especially in the online space, is one of the most toughest things today. Some people don't keep their video on, they switch off their video, you don't know what's happening. Was that even a problem, or have you managed to tackle that?
Jaggi, a challenge that exists, right? Forget about classes. Challenge exists even during corporate meetings, with videos not being on, being
Right.
off. Something that is not in control of any individual, right?
Right.
The only thing that we try to do is we try to give them activities which they have to do then and there and show it to us. Now, we do not allow people to present, right? So they do their activities in a sheet of paper or in a book, and then they hold that book in front of us and show it to us. This ensures that someone is at least switched on the camera.
Right.
Number one. Number two, the way our entire program is planned is that post every program, so ours is a certified program. Okay, we provide certification. As of now, we are providing internal certification, but we are trying to tie up with maybe an international university which can authenticate this entire program and provide certification.
Right.
If that happens, then good. But what we have is, after every session, there is an assignment and an assessment which is linked with that session.
Got it.
So if you missed a session even for, let's say, a minute or more, you would not figure out what to do in that assessment and assignment
Mm.
because they are linked.
Right.
All information within that session is important for you to use that in the assessment or assignment.
Right.
And only when you complete this entire life cycle is when you get certified.
Right. Right.
Right. So, so that's one part here. We felt videos. You're right. Animation makes things easy, but what we felt is activities make it much easier. Okay,
Right.
especially when the activities aligned with your experience.
Right.
So if I ask Jackie to, for example, if I give you an activity talking about, uh, let's say, doing a sales, right, or doing a coding, it may not fit you. But if I give you a Jackie activity saying that, hey, can you plan an entire podcast, script?
Right.
It's an activity that is aligned with you. You should be able to do it.
Right. Right.
Right? Well, the objective may be different. But as long as I know that I'm talking about finance and I'm trying to make you understand about money management,
Yeah.
my activity relevant to money management makes it much better. Right? So we kept ourselves, away from animated based story or movies as of now.
Agreed. Makes complete sense. Here's the thing, Anant. You said, in the beginning when we spoke about teaching is about convincing the student that they can learn by kind of going through their interest areas. Now, so does that mean you're doing one-on-one training here, or if it's a batch, how do you manage the personalization when you give activities?
So what happens in our program is every individual who enrolls has a mentor.
Right.
So one mentor is managing 20 students.
Right.
The mentor's job is that, okay, so the activity is a bit generic when I ask you to do. But so for example, one activity that we ask students to do is list down their entire expense that they have incurred, every rupee by penny for the past 10 days. Now,
Right.
this is a generic activity.
Right. Right.
But what you are filling is very specific to you.
Correct. Yes.
Now, once you fill, you send it that information to our mentor.
Right.
The mentor connects with that student, spends 15 minutes to each student to understand what changes they could have done in this entire expense sheet. Right? What expense they could have controlled, what expense they could have discarded, what expense was a need-based expense, a want-based expense, a luxury-based expense types, right? And that's where the entire learning comes out.
Right.
Now, what is an expense tracker? It's a generic learning. So I don't mind teaching 10 students together what is an expense tracker.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? They're asking you to make a budget or asking you to make an expense tracker is also very generic. But when you make one, you get connected with the mentor, and that's where the personalized learning comes in.
Got it.
Right.
Great.
So that's why I said one is self-paced learning and one is a live learning.
Great. Now, when you spoke about this expense tracker, see, some students may have spent in the last 10 days, some students, it's a very subjective thing. So do you make it a point with the parents that, to deliberately do something?
No, we don't. No, we don't. So what we do is, there are two aspects here. If you have spent in the last 10 days, we ask you to record those spending. If not, we ask you to record the last 10 items that you have bought.
10 items, correct. It need not be time attached.
It may not be the last 10 days, time attached, 10 items. And then we start pushing you to figure out which of these items are you in regular use with.
Right.
That's where they see that 40% of the spend that they have done is actually of no use.
Right. Got it.
Right. So what we teach them through this is we teach them not only about money management, we teach them about making good financial decisions.
Right.
We teach them about having negotiation aspect, right? Which is very important.
Yeah.
And so all the learnings that is required to for your behavioral change towards money is what we teach here.
Got it, Anand. When it comes to um, the online infrastructure, right now, I am assuming, that all the training that you're doing is happening online. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
There's no in-person classes and stuff.
No.
So this is a very generic thing for anybody who's teaching, right? What's your online tech stack looks like? I mean, do you use Zoom? What are the tools that are very essential for you? What are the gaps that are existing currently in your tech stack for online teaching?
Okay, so the current online that we are using is a third-party tool.
Okay.
We are obviously using Zoom, right?
Okay.
An inbuilt tool with our learning management system.
Right.
So we have an LMS where all the assignments and assessments comes into picture, and students can attend the classes through Zoom. The recordings that happens. But yeah, there are challenges that you find in online spaces,
Mm-hmm.
right? Though AI has tried to solve a lot
Right.
by trying to measure the attendance of a person, the curiosity level of a person, or interest level of a person. But the challenges still remain because what you can teach live, right, by making the changes that is required by looking at a facial expression of a student or the physical behavior of a student, how you can change your entire class because you realize that, okay, there's one segment of the class which is really not enjoying the topic that you're teaching.
Right.
And you suddenly shift your gaze to ensure that all are accommodating, right, to that learning. These challenges, I think, are still, that exists in online mode. Because, as I said, when I'm not finding interest, I probably switch off my camera, right? And that's that with a teenager, especially with a teenager who has an access to mobile phones, who has an access to social gathering sites, and it's a challenge by itself, which probably will take a lot more time to solve rather than what seems to be.
Got it. And when you decided that personal finance this is the product and stuff like that, one of the important things when it comes to teaching and education is the material that you build, the content that you have, right? How did you go about cracking this process? Because this is the crux of your business, and once this is solved, you will go forward. So were you the subject matter expert in this case yourself, or did you consult with others? Any finance experts? Because we are
Right.
the teenagers here, right?
Yeah, so true. So one thing that we believed here, Jaggi, is that if you are into, or one thing that I believe is, if you are into education, then content is the king. And if content is not under your control, then you better not have that business for yourself. Right? Because there's no fun in someone else making content for you, and when that is the core of your business.
Right.
So the core of the content, obviously the plan or the skeleton of the content was created by me, right? As I said, I have been an academician, so I understand how structures are. To create the content, we started having a couple of people from different background. So the first idea was to know what are we going to teach.
Right.
So we started with including the first module, which was into psychology. Then once we figured out that a person should understand the behavioral side of money, then we thought that he should also know how the money works in the market, which means economics is very important for someone to know, right? And economics is not something that everyone learns. Right. So we introduced a module on economics and how markets are, what are the various types of markets, so that students understand what this is.
Right.
Beyond this, we then realized that when it comes to investments, it's more of math.
Right.
So we built in a module called as financial mathematics, which tells you how EMIs get calculated, right? Which tells you how compound interest works, or simple interest works, or how present value or future value works, how rate of interest works. So we wanted people to understand these terminologies rather than going always to an online calculator, right? They should be able to build their own.
Right.
calculators,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because each person's investment journey is different. I
Yeah.
cannot be dependent on an online calculator for that.
Right.
Once we made this module, we also realized that where will this person use his mathematical skills? He cannot use in a calculator on a daily basis. So we introduced a module on teaching people about how to use Microsoft Excel,
Right.
right? So we brought in a module where you can learn about Excel, advanced level, create formulas or create, your own future graphs. We wanted to introduce people about banking and taxation because that's one of the areas where most of the people keep their money first thing, right? Which is bank. And second, where most of the one portion of your yearly expense goes, which is your tax. If you do
Right.
not have a knowledge on these two, there is no fun in doing anything else. So we introduced banking and taxation. Then we introduced another module which is on understanding finance. So how do I, when I invest, I'm not investing on a blind aspect. I'm investing on market. I'm investing market driven by companies. So how do I read companies? How do I understand? So you need to know how finances work. What are various financial statements and how do you read them? So we introduced finance as a topic. And finally, we introduced investments, right?
Right.
And in investments, our main target is covering, giving knowledge about all possible investments that exist,
Right.
not promoting any investment,
Right.
not telling where your money will grow. We want to be a institute or we want to be a place where people learn various, uh, understand various aspects of investments or verticals of investments, and they are capable enough to do a self decision on which investments works good for them,
Right.
right? So rather than pushing, saying that, hey, you should trade, you should go into future options, you should go into equity. No, that's not our job. So this is what first we created the modules.
Right.
Once created, the investment module was completely created by SEBI registrar or licensed investors, right?
Got it. Got it.
So we did that. The economics module was created by PhD economics holders.
Right.
The finance module was created by MBA finance and CAs, the taxation, right? The math and the Excel and the psychology was created by relevant people. While my idea was to give them the entire structure of what the
Got it.
sessions should hold, how should the flow should be. Yeah, this is where it was.
Great. Great stuff. Can you, you've spoken about the psychology. Can you share one interesting uh, psychology behind or behavior behind a typical um, way we spend, which may not be which we think is right, but which is not wrong?
Right, Jaggi. So, one of the psychology that I insist on myself as well as on others is I use a rule called as a 24 rule. I mean, that is nothing called as a rule, but I have named it for myself, right?
Right.
It's a 24-day rule that I have kept. Now, this rule is when I want to buy something, if I'm let's say at Amazon ready to buy because I need this, I push it to 24 days.
Right.
If I'm walking, if I'm in a mall and I see I see some apparels or something that I really, gadgets that I really want to buy, before I step in, I just push it 24 days. By 24th day, if I still remember that material or that merchandise that I really want to buy, then it means that I really need it. 80% of the time, I have forgotten what I really wanted to buy in 24 days.
Right.
And thus, I end up buying only things which I really need to buy. And this is something that I have seen drastically change, even in my kids, right? Who now have started putting it. I said only one thing: if 24 days looks too big for them, because psychologically they feel, oh, I have to postpone for a month, right? Which they are not ready to do at that tender age. So I usually ask them to push it for 14 days, 2 weeks.
Got it.
Exactly, right? So I push it for 2 weeks, 14 days. And I say that save your money, right, for 14 days and put your budget, what your budget is. Now, after 14 days, if they really want to buy that, if they still think of buying it, then they buy it only if that falls within that budget.
Right.
Otherwise, they do not buy. So putting budget first, then buying is more important than putting the item first and then setting your budget. Right? Saying that, okay, I want a 55-inch TV. It's good, right? But then wait for 24 days. If you still enjoy watching the TV in your old TV, just continue doing that, right? And if you still don't, then put a budget and then go for searching, rather than searching and then setting a budget.
Got it.
Right. So this is one thing that I deploy for myself, and it has seen a tremendous change in the way I have done. I love watches, right? And I love cars. Okay, and before I'm not the right fit to teach someone about financial literacy, I think sometimes, because there was a time in my life when I used to change cars almost once every 2 years. The maximum I used to have a car is for 2 years. Right? Excuse me. With an understanding that a car depreciates faster in the first 3 years than it depreciates in the later stage, with that learn and understand knowledge, I still used to buy cars once every 2 years, right? And it's not just buying cars, it was decorating the cars too, right? Spending on accessories on almost once every 3 months was my habit.
Right.
Now, this is only the phase where I have a vehicle which has been with me for now 9 years.
Wow. Okay.
With no accessory done. Every time I think of an accessory, I push it for almost 2 months for it. 24 days to 2 months is what I push. And if I still think about it, that's when I think that I require it. But most of the time, I don't need it.
Got it.
So yeah, this is something that I can share with you, Jaggi, if it really helps you.
It does. It's a very interesting thing. Of course, why not? And people, I believe, can probably tweak that 24 days into, say, 20 days or 15 days according to their convenience. But don't give in to it at that moment itself. Postpone it a little bit more. Sleep on it maybe.
Right.
And then see if it's, if your mind has changed, if it was an impulse buy. Because I agree with this. Because a lot of times we make impulse buys and then later think, oh, I shouldn't have got this. And,
I do this even for, I suggest this even for people who want to, who are taking this afternoon food or going to a restaurant.
Right.
So when we are walking, we see a restaurant and suddenly we are hungry, right? We want to get into that restaurant. What I suggest is usually I say, cross that, okay? Push yourself to cross it. Go for maybe another 15, 20 steps ahead. If your determined is so much that you want to turn back and walk again, it means you really want to eat that food. But most of the time, we don't want to go back.
This is something that I've experienced myself. And sometimes you don't know what you want. You know you're hungry, but then, I just let my, whatever, I use a two-wheeler. So I just let it, just take me wherever, You can't stop, obviously. You will go somewhere. And sometimes, these are very interesting psychological aspects, that I think we can talk for a long time. Very interesting, definitely. Maybe another podcast just for this. But the way you broke down, the way you, experienced your, couple of failures before, the learnings, and then the way you've applied those things in the current journey. Thank you so much for doing that, Ananth.
Thanks,
very candidly put also at times you said, late 20s you started just because somebody else is doing is not the easy thing to admit for most people, right? But I think if somebody can realize that and go back to figuring out why they want to start something, I think that will solve them a lot of pain and stuff.
Right.
Great, Ananth. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge and, a wealth of experience that you've gained over a period of 15 years and more. This is truly invaluable. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jaggi. Thanks a lot for inviting. Thanks for making me nostalgic and, coming out with all those things that I'm suddenly talking to you. I also realized there are a couple of learnings that I missed utilizing it now. So I should actually look out onto the paper now, draft it down. It so happens it's always there on your subconscious mind, but then it takes time for it to come out to the conscious mind. And thanks to you for bringing certain, things right in front of me for me to start
My
implementing
pleasure.
that.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Thanks, Jaggi. Thanks for your time too. Thanks for your invitation, and thanks to all the listeners who are going to listen to this podcast. And I just hope that they learn or they get something from me, and moreover, they also become a good word of mouth for the university.
Absolutely. I myself am gonna, I've always believed personal finance is very important for people because of certain experiences that I've had, and I have a niece myself. But she's not yet old enough to probably, pick things. She's like 5 or 6 years old. But all the people that I know, who are crossing 10, 12 years old, I think it's time for them to kind of, get into such things. And you know what? I also thought exposing kids who are 13 years old to such things or different courses like this, it gives them a chance to figure out what they might want to do. Imagine somebody falls in love with the concept that you're teaching now, right? They may figure out, oh, you know what, finance is something that I want to do. Behavioral finance is something. These things are really interesting, and
Right.
we could do a lot more with such future experts in these things. So yeah.
True.
And great. Anant, before we end, I'll just stop the recording alone. Is there something that you want to share? Were you about to share something?
No, no, nothing, nothing. I'm also done.
Okay, great. I'm just going to stop the recording and then